Hey everyone, this is Rayce Robinson, your favorite Florida mortgage broker, and we're going to get into this fascinating article from Redfin that talks about the U.S. housing market has nearly 500,000 more sellers than buyers, the most on record, that will likely cause home prices to fall.
You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth!
Let's face it, inventory's going up, rates are staying higher, especially here in Florida. We have increasing inventory like everywhere. And Redfin's asking itself the question, with the current data, what's likely to happen? Housing prices, is this a buyer's market? Is it a seller's market? And what we can expect going forward. So again, this was the headline. Let's look at kind of the major bullet points that they're covering in this article. One, there are 34% more sellers in the market than buyers. At no other point in records dating back to 2013 have sellers outnumbered buyers this much. In other words, let's face it, it's officially a buyer's market. Redfin expects home prices to drop 1% by the end of the year as a result. And I will say, for most people, 1% is not going to move the needle. So to have a little bit of spoiler alert, they're not predicting a major market correction, which I would think would be 10, 15, 20%. But they are predicting a market shift more in favor of buyers. They're saying 31 of the 50 metros are buyers markets. The strongest buyers market is in Miami, where sellers outnumber buyers roughly 3-1. That is amazing, compared especially where we were. The strongest sellers market is in Newark, and the most balanced market is in St. Louis. And the condo market heavily favors buyers. There are 83% more condo sellers than buyers. By comparison, there are 28% more sellers than buyers in single-family homes market. And this is not a newsflash, right? Condos here in Florida, especially with all the HOA issues, with the issues with the collapse in Miami of the condos and all the new guidelines, it's just gotten more, it's not only gotten harder to qualify, people have less confidence in buying condos, and that's just showing up in the numbers. But we want to look at, not just Miami, which is condos, or not just condos, I should say. We want to look at single family homes in general, especially in Florida. So they point out there are nearly 500,000 more sellers than buyers when we look at the numbers. So they are saying, and we're going to go to the end of this graph here, that there is 1.943 million sellers, while we only have 1.453628 buyers, meaning that at no other point in records dating back to 2013 have sellers outnumbered buyers by this large of a percentage. Here's what I find most interesting about this graph. I like to read between the lines and give my thoughts on things. So when we look at sellers, how homes are on the market, is this extremely high historically? Well, the answer is obviously no, right? We look here at the red line. We can see back to 2013, there were a lot more sellers then than there are now. What's fallen? Demand. Demand has crashed. We are likely to be under 4 million transactions this year. So this is where all the action's happening. Yeah, we are getting more sellers, which makes sense, right? Because we are heading back to the norm. Meanwhile, buyers are down here. But another thing that we've noticed, every time buyers, this gulf has grown between buyers and sellers. What happens? We get a big spike in buying demand, and that's because usually that means lower rates pushing buyers into the market. We can see almost every time there's a gulf here, we get this spike, right? And now we've got this big gulf here. That just means that when the time is right now what we have is pent-up demand. We have people that are sitting on the sidelines, re-signing leases, doing things, saying not that they're not going to buy, but they're going to wait until they feel like it's more favorable. What's more favorable for a buyer? In most cases, it's the lowest possible payment. Obviously, we buy on payment. So what is going to release that demand is going to be when rates fall. And that, unfortunately, doesn't look like it's going to happen a lot this year, right? We were predicting at the beginning of this year rates to be in the low sixes. We only have 5 more Fed meetings. They're not going to cut the next one. Maybe they'll cut one over the next couple months after that. But we shall see. We are not predicting rates now to get, maybe at 6.5%. They're definitely not going to go up. I can't say definitely, but likely not to go up. But the amount they're going to go down is going to get pushed out into 2026, where the Fed is more likely to cut. But I was interested when I was reading this article, what is the health of the market, right? In 2008, we had this huge jump in inventory And then we had the big market crash or the Great Recession. So let's take a look at market health. So when I look at mortgage delinquencies, want to see a crash? Here was mortgage delinquencies in 2010 when they spiked. Where are we at now? Pretty much at the norm, right? 1.78, and you can see that's the norm, right? We are not having any type of record mortgage delinquencies. Let's look at unemployment. Want to see a market correction? Here we are in 2010, unemployment getting to 10% and actually did hit 10% in October of 2009. Where are we at right now? We're at 4.2%, which is about the norm, right? No big spike in unemployment. And let's look at housing inventory, and this is active inventory. We have 959,000 homes in active inventory, which is a little different than real inventory. But again, are we having a massive spike that is out of the ordinary? No, we are not. So these are the things that I look at as far as the health of the market. Now, I do want to note when I look at this chart that Redfin has for top buyers market as of April 2025, we have Miami leading the charge here. But look how many of these markets are in Florida: Miami, West Palm, Fort Lauderdale, Jacksonville, Tampa, and Orlando. At 92%, the seller versus buyers difference, we have right now 10,184 buyers to 19,555 sellers. Median price, though, again, not really changing. And you would expect Florida, with the hurricanes, with rising insurance, we are getting the brunt of it here. Now, all markets are local. I'm in Oviedo. There are definitely pockets of different areas that you're still not going to get a lot of help from sellers because you might even be competing. But in general, here's the opportunity for your buyers. If you're a real estate agent, talk about the power to negotiate. I was talking to a client today, and with the 2-1 Buydown, which was an $8,500 seller concession, I could lower that buyer's payment $500 a month. That makes a huge difference in a buyer understanding, hey, I can buy now and refinance later, and I've got 2 years to make that decision to refinance, and I don't have an adjustable rate. I have a Buydown. Don't know what a Buydown is? Reach out to me. But we are in a market where we've got tariffs, we got the Fed on pause, we've got buyers kind of on hold, and we've got transactions falling under 4 million. So we're going to watch how this data plays out. And then just last thing with rates, we are at 6.95% on a 30-year fixed. Again, the trend really in this low 7s to high 6 range. We have hit 6.5% a few times, but every time we do, we bounce right back up. Am I expecting a big change anytime soon? No. If you're a real estate agent, does this really matter? No. There are real estate agents crushing it. There are buyers out there getting great deals, and there are sellers out there getting top value, the ones that are willing to market their house right, work with a great agent, and make the property in tip-top condition, which is what it requires now to sell a home. So again, if you're a real estate agent, you should be focusing not on the market, focus on your daily success plan. I'm going to say that every single time that I do a video because I see real estate agents doing really well, and they're the ones that know what they're getting up every day and doing. They're rinsing and repeating and having great success. Have any questions on this, the market, reach out to me. This is Rayce Robinson, your favorite Florida mortgage broker. There's the bond program. There's Hometown Heroes coming out. If you're a buyer and you made it to the end of the video, thank you. And if you want to know about these programs, reach out. Again, we're going to track all the data here. Have a great day, great week, and I'll talk to you soon.